Imagine holding a material that is incredibly thin, almost weightless, yet surprisingly strong. It comes from one of the smallest creatures on Earth. A spider. Spider silk has fascinated scientists for decades. But one question sounds almost unbelievable. Can spider silk really be stronger than steel? To understand the answer, we first need to understand what makes spider silk so special. Spider silk is produced inside a spider's body. Different spiders can produce different types of silk, and each type has a different purpose. Some silk is used to build webs. Some is used to protect eggs. Some helps spiders move or escape danger. And some is used to capture prey. But the most impressive thing about spider silk is its combination of strength and flexibility. Imagine a thin thread that can stretch without immediately breaking. That's one of the secrets behind spider silk. Steel is extremely strong. But steel is also relatively rigid. Spider silk, on the other hand, can absorb energy while stretching. This means that when something hits a spider web, the silk can deform and absorb part of the impact. And that is incredibly useful for a spider trying to catch flying insects. Think about a fly moving through the air. It can be surprisingly fast. If a web were completely rigid, the impact could simply destroy it. Instead, the silk stretches and distributes the force through the web. The web moves, but it doesn't necessarily break. And there is another fascinating detail. A spider web isn't just one piece of material. It is a carefully designed structure. The spider creates different strands for different purposes. Some strands form the framework. Others create the spiral pattern. Some parts are sticky, helping insects become trapped. The spider can build this complicated structure using only silk produced by its own body. But let's return to the big question. Is spider silk actually stronger than steel? The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. When scientists compare materials, they don't look at only one measurement. They can measure tensile strength, how much force a material can withstand before breaking. They can also measure toughness, how much energy the material can absorb before it breaks. And this is where spider silk becomes especially interesting. Certain types of spider silk can have an extremely high strength-to-weight ratio. In other words, the material can be very strong while being incredibly light. That doesn't mean a tiny strand of spider silk would simply replace a thick steel cable. Steel is still an extraordinary engineering material. But if you compare materials by weight and specific properties, spider silk can be remarkably impressive. And scientists want to know why. The answer is hidden inside the silk's molecular structure. Spider silk is made mainly from proteins. These proteins contain long molecular chains arranged in a very unusual way. Some parts provide strength. Other parts allow the material to stretch. Together, they create a combination that is difficult to reproduce. And this is exactly what makes spider silk so interesting to researchers. Scientists have tried to create artificial spider silk. The goal isn't to create giant spider webs. The goal is to understand the material well enough to produce useful fibers. Imagine a lightweight material that could be used in advanced clothing, medical materials, engineering, or other technologies. That possibility has inspired research around the world. But creating artificial spider silk isn't easy. Spiders don't simply produce silk like a machine producing plastic. Their bodies control temperature, chemistry, water content, and the movement of proteins during silk production. The process is extremely complicated. And there is another problem. Spiders aren't exactly farm animals. Many spider species are territorial and may attack other spiders. So keeping huge numbers of spiders together to collect silk isn't practical. Instead, researchers have explored ways to produce silk proteins using other organisms and laboratory techniques. The idea is simple. Understand the spider's proteins, produce them in another system, and then turn them into useful fibers. But even after producing the proteins, scientists still have to reproduce the spider's method of transforming them into silk. That's one of the biggest challenges. Nature has had millions of years to develop this material. Humans are still trying to understand it. And spider silk isn't only interesting because of its strength. It is also incredibly lightweight. A single strand can be extremely thin. Yet thousands of strands can work together to form a structure strong enough to catch insects. The spider web is basically a tiny engineering masterpiece. Look closely at a web in the morning. When sunlight hits the silk and tiny drops of water cover its surface, you can see how complicated the structure really is. Every line has a purpose. Every connection helps distribute forces. And the spider doesn't need a computer or measuring equipment. It simply follows its natural behavior. But there is another surprising fact. Not all spider webs look the same. Some spiders build large circular orb webs. Others build messy-looking webs. Some create tunnels. Others build sheets. Different spiders have evolved different designs depending on their environment and hunting strategy. So the web itself is another example of natural engineering. And this raises a bigger question. How many other materials in nature are we still failing to understand? Nature has already created materials with incredible properties. Shells can be remarkably tough. Bones are strong but relatively lightweight. Tree fibers can support enormous structures. And spider silk combines strength, flexibility, and low weight in a way that continues to interest scientists. The lesson isn't simply that spiders are stronger than humans. It's that nature often solves engineering problems in ways we don't immediately understand. A spider doesn't need steel. It doesn't need factories. It doesn't need electricity. Yet it can produce a complex material using biological processes inside its own body. So, is spider silk stronger than steel? In some measurements and under certain comparisons, spider silk can outperform steel by weight. But saying simply that spider silk is stronger than steel can be misleading. The two materials have different properties and are used for different purposes. Steel remains incredibly valuable for buildings, bridges, machines, and countless technologies. Spider silk is fascinating because of its unique combination of properties. And perhaps one day, understanding those properties could help humans create completely new materials. Materials that are lighter, stronger, more flexible, and more efficient. All inspired by a tiny creature that most people simply walk past. So the next time you see a spider web, don't just think of it as a web. Think of it as a tiny piece of natural engineering. A structure built from proteins, designed by evolution, and produced by one of the most fascinating creatures on Earth. Because sometimes, the biggest technological ideas aren't found in laboratories. They're already hiding in nature. And perhaps the next revolutionary material could begin with something as small as a spider. Spider.